Hey, but let's go to Brad here. Brad Halbrook, State Representative Brad Halbrook is in the studio with me. Thank you for coming up. I want to bring you in for a couple different things. One, the Safety Act. Let's talk about that because the way this bill was passed is just, it was a disaster.
Right.
I mean, so tell us about that. Be more specific.
Well, first of all, Jeanne, congratulations on your new show number 2 tonight. It's a pleasure to be here to be a part of this. And so I hope we come back for show 100 and show 200 and whatever. So this is good stuff. Safety Act. This is what the majority party likes to do really well is pass these big, huge bills in the middle of the night. And this happened during lame duck session. I think it hit the Senate about 3:30 a.m. The Senate had been in since the day before, had worked through the night. We had done the same thing, worked through the night. They got it, had less than an hour to debate it in the Senate. 760-page bill, 3:30 a.m. They passed it about 4:30, and then both chambers are adjourned. Now, this is in the final few hours of the 102nd General Assembly, right? We're going to get sworn in.
It's also in a lame duck. These are there's legislators voting on this that will never seek public office again.
Right.
So.
Right.
Okay.
So it's just patently unfair for all those reasons, right? You know, we've got legislators that didn't run again, they retired, or they were voted out. So there's no consequences to their votes at this time.
Right.
But it's unfair that when all the media is asleep, everybody else is asleep, we get these big bills like this, 700-800 pages.
Well, I mean, so look, and in the House, it passed with 60 votes. 60 votes.
Right. That's
the barest of bare minimums. You can pass a bill with 60 votes. And it's just unreal. I mean, Fred Crespo, Deb Conroy is now the chairperson for DuPage County. She voted for the Safety Act. You just heard what the state's attorney from McHenry County said about it. She voted for the Safety Act. There is a lot of suburban, legislators who voted for this garbage. But this was an initiative of the Black Caucus. Right? Right. And they were trying to cut a deal with Mike Madigan to pass this so that Madigan could save his speakership. So there was some behind the scenes wheeling and dealing done, and then goes on and Madigan loses his speakership.
He's ultimately out in a matter of a few hours anyway.
Yeah, he was out in a matter of a few hours anyway.
Yeah.
So that didn't work either. Okay, and then following the vote, it has subsequently from, let's see, that was January
of 2021.
January 2021, and it has had how many trailer bills?
I think 4 trailer bills. Most recent was last fall. Tremendous amount of outrage going into the summer. A lot of us had town halls. We heard from a lot of constituents. The Senate Republicans claimed that there was some fixes. I can't speak specifically to every one of those that they got into the bill to fix it to somewhat, but it still was a 330-page trailer bill. And this is the 4th one over this course of from January 2021.
And in the intervening time, you've had 60 states attorneys, sheriffs, thereabouts, sue over it.
Right.
A Kankakee judge said, hey, this lawsuit has merit. He stops the implementation of the Safety Act. Then I don't know the legal term, but it ended up having to go up to the Supreme Court. Yeah. They just overturned it on Wednesday.
Right. So 64 counties joined with Kankakee County there late in December, the last week when the cashless bail was to go into practice the 1st of January. They got temporary relief, I think is what it was. They got a TRO. And, of course, it immediately went to Supreme Court that weekend, and the Supreme Court basically put a stay on it going in to action. But then, like you say, Tuesday morning about 9 a.m., Supreme Court came out, says it's constitutional. Jeanne, I don't know. The Constitution talks about this. This is in the Constitution. That's why it got...
Yeah, our Constitution actually says something about bail.
Right.
And their response was, well, bail doesn't necessarily mean cash. But like we just heard from the state's attorney, Keneally, no, it's always been referred to as cash. That's always been the implementation. I mean, I think I'm worried about really the victims, not the injustices to victims in this. Listen, we only have a few seconds left here, but coming up, we're going to switch gears with State Rep Brad Halbrook because you and 2 other members of the Republican caucus put out an incredible op-ed about the rampant misuse of COVID funds. We're going to talk about that in detail. Stay tuned.
We now return to The Real Story. Here's your host, Jeanne Ives.
Yes, it's The Real Story with Jeanne Ives, and in studio with me is State Representative Brad Halbrook. Brad, you and State Reps Chris Miller and Dan Calkins, all part of the Illinois Freedom Caucus. Love what you guys are doing there, holding people accountable in your own caucus first. But you wrote this op-ed, and here's what you said. Buried in the Illinois budget, we found over $1.3 billion of COVID-19 funding coming from SCURF-ARPA funds. Mm-hmm. Among the items federal taxpayers will have to subsidize as COVID-related are welcoming centers for illegal aliens, $3.3 million. Mm-hmm. Chicago-based United Power, which is a community organization that lobbies for social services, they get $8.5 million. The Latino Family Commission, the African American Family Commission, the Asian American Family Commission, they all are getting $4 million as part of COVID relief. Numerous other grants to local governments, like the Peoria Chamber of Commerce is getting $500,000. Now, SCURF-ARPA, SCURF is State Coronavirus Urgent Remediation Emergency Funds. Even the governor agreed that COVID was over.
Yeah, after lockdown for
after 47 executive orders, even the governor agreed that COVID was over. And this is from the most recent budget.
Right.
This isn't last year's budget. This is the year before. This is this year's budget passed just a couple months ago.
Right. Just been in effect 23 days.
Did anybody know about this? And I don't think anybody has seen the spreadsheet of nearly 100 items that you guys asked for from staff and received. Did you guys have this information ahead of time when you voted on the budget?
No, we didn't see any of this stuff.
You saw none of this?
No. I'm sure the majority party saw it, but we didn't see it.
So I started to look at the budget once you guys had pointed out that Black Lives Matter Lake County is getting $300,000. Well, sure enough, there's over $82 million in quote-unquote violence prevention grants that are being used, that COVID money is going to. Well, how is that related to COVID? I mean, I don't know how that's going to stop violence. Spending money, COVID money.
Well, we don't know how a lot of. The governor spent $700 million. Wasn't it $700,000 on peacekeepers to stop violence the last weekend in May through the month of June, and violence was up 38% in the first 30 days of Governor or Mayor Brandon's administration. So none of this stuff. It's not working.
So, honestly, I think...
And I don't know how it's COVID related to begin with.
Yeah, there's, I don't know what this is, $3,894 to the Working on Womanhood. I don't know what that program is. Is anybody now going to look further into whether or not these guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Well, I think so. We're going to have to find out.
Audit.
Right, there should be a full audit, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of what some of this is happening, where it's going, what's going on with it. Yeah. But we find, IDES, the Unemployment Security, has denied us for 2 years about the fraud. They're still in denial about the fraud with all of that. One of the biggest programs. There's no accountability there. They just deny and divert. No answers.
Well, you've been on this the whole time. Finally they did pass a bill saying that we're going to extend the time frame for which you can be charged for fraudulently taking COVID money. Right. Whether it's unemployment or PPP or any of the others. So
back in the appropriations process, when we heard from the AG's office, they indicated they had 60-some cases they were investigating, but they would not go on to say just how wide, how deep they thought it was. But their numbers and what the feds say is fraud and IDS is two dramatically different numbers. They're light years apart. So I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of some of that stuff.
Well, a lot of people want to accuse conservatives of only caring about cultural issues, but honestly, financial issues are something that everybody should care about. And this should be universal outrage that you're using $1.3 billion in COVID money. And in fact, this is a reason to support the congressional Republicans who say we need to claw back unspent COVID funds. Well, we're proof in the pudding here that you should be clawing it back.
And why some of this is important, back to the unemployment fund, is they borrowed money to make that fund whole again. They raised the rates on employers, right? And here's $1.3 billion that they could have used to fund that program back. That was in part of the rules. They could have used that, but no, we're going to go to the employers. We're going to tax them a little bit more, which ultimately ends up in the employee or the whoever's consuming that good or services.
That's right. When the money's not there, the employers get taxed and everybody pays for that.
Right.
Or your benefits get cut, but in this state they don't do that. They just raise a tax on employers. Okay.